In the previous lecture, we started studying about processes, and we saw a brief introduction to process management. Now in this lecture, we'll be studying about process state. Now let us first try to understand what do we mean by process states, and what can we understand by the states in which a process is. So previously, we have studied that a program in execution is known as a process. So as a process executes, it changes its state. And the state of a process is defined in part by the current activity of that process. So when a process is executing, it can change from one state to another. And the state of a process is defined by the current activity of the process, which means that what is the process currently doing? What is the current activity of that process? That is what we mean by the state of that process now. Let us see what are the states that a process can be in. So each process may be in one of the following states. So we will be seeing what are the states in which a process can be in. So first of all, we have new. So if a process is in the new state, it means the process is being created. So when the process is being created, when the program is going to be in execution, and the process is being created for performing a particular task, at that state, or at that moment, we say that the process is in a new state. Now the second state is running state. So when instructions are being executed, at that moment we say that the process is in the running state. So when the process is being created, it is known as the new state. And then when the process begins its execution, that means when the instructions within the process are being executed, at that moment we say that the process is in the running state. Now there is another state known as the waiting state. So the process is waiting for some event to occur, such as an input-output completion or reception of a signal. So we say that a process is in the waiting state when it is waiting for some event to occur. So what can be the events? Some examples are I/O completion, input-output completion. Some I/O operation needs to be completed, which are in high priority. So we need to wait for the IOP operation to be completed. We means the process has to wait for the input operation to complete or reception of a signal. So if the process is waiting for a signal to be received and it is waiting for that signal, so such other cases that we can have. So in such cases, when the process is waiting for some event to occur, at that time we said that the process is in the waiting state. Then we have the ready state. Now let's see. What is this? The process is waiting to be assigned to a processor. So when the process has been created, that means the process is already been created. The new state is already over, and it is not yet running. Alright, so after the process is created, and before it starts running, the process has to be assigned to a processor so that it can start running or it can start its execution. So at that moment, we said that the process is in ready state. So the process is created, and it is not yet running, but it is ready. So at that moment, we said that the process is in the ready state when it is waiting to be assigned to a processor so that it can begin or resume its execution. And then the last one is called the terminated state. So from the name itself, you must have understood the process has finished execution. So when the process finishes execution, then we say that it is in the terminated state. Order process has been terminated. So these are the states in which a process can be in. So basically, these are the main states that we have, and different books or different systems may use different words to denote these states, but basically they all mean the same thing. Now let us look at a diagram of the process states and see how a process begins from the new states and register terminated state. So here we have a diagram which shows the process states, and here we have all the states that we have just studied before. And let us see how does the process change from one state to another using this diagram. So first of all, we have the new state. So here the process is being created. So when the process is being created, it is there in this new state. So after the process is created, this admitted, and it comes to the ready state. So what is a ready state? In the ready state, the process is ready to begin execution, and it is waiting to be assigned a processor so that it can begin its execution. So the process is created, and it is admitted, and it is ready over here. So in the ready state, what can happen? The scheduler dispatches it to the processor, And then when it begins is execution. It is in the running state, so when it is dispatched and when it receives a processor, then it begins its execution. And when it is executing, or when the instructions in that process is being executed, at that moment, we said that it is in the running state. Now after coming to the running state, there are 3 cases that can occur. So the first case is, it was running, and it finished its execution, and then it exits, and goes to the terminated state. That means there was no interruption in its running, and it was properly executed. And once it finished its execution, it exits and it goes to the terminated state. All right, now let's see. What is the next case that can occur? The next case that can occur is, there can be an interrupt when the process was being executed. That said that when this was being executed, some other process with high priority came, and this process was interrupted. So when it gets interrupted, it goes back to the ready state again. So it goes back to the ready state again. And once interrupt has been handled, this process can again be dispatched. An assigned processor can begin its execution and go to running state again. So that is what happens if an interrupt is encountered when a process is being executed. Now, the next case that can occur is, when it is running, it needs to wait for an input-output operation or an event wait. So let's say that this process needs some input-output devices or some event to occur. So at that time, what happens? It goes to the waiting state, and in the waiting state, which we already studied before, what is it? It is waiting for an input, output, or it is waiting for an event to occur. So that process may need something like an input, output, or an event, or something. Or it may need a signal from somewhere. So unless that is completed, it will stay in the waiting state over here. And once the input, output operation, or the even that it was waiting for has been completed, so what happens? Once the input, output operation, or event completion occurs, it goes to the ready state again. So it is ready to be executed again. So it goes to the ready state again, and the scheduler dispatch will take it to the running state again. That means it would be a processor to start running again. So those are the states in which a process can be in. So we see that the process it gets created is in the new state. Then it comes to the radio state, where it is ready to begin its execution. And once it is ready, it can go to the running state. And in the running state, if there is an interrupt that occurs, so it will come back to the ready state until the interrupt has been handled, and it will go back to the running state again and again in the running state. If it has to wait for some input, operation, or event to occur, then it goes to the waiting state. It waits for the event to occur, and once the event has occurred, or once the event has been completed, it again goes back to the ready state when it is ready for execution again, and then it comes to the running state after that. And once the running or execution has been completed, it exits and goes to the terminated state. So this is how a process changes from one state to another, depending upon different situations, as we saw here. So these are the stage in which a process can be in. So I hope this lecture about process stage was clear to you. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.